Want to say hello to our audience today. My name is Stuart Creek. I'm with Simplilearn, and we'll be getting started in just a moment with Vinita Rastogi of PayPal. Give me just one moment to get our LinkedIn stream started for our streaming audience. You would think that would be a one-button operation, but it actually takes a little more effort than that. All right. And welcome to our streaming audience on LinkedIn Live as well as YouTube. And of course, here live on WebEx. Let's get started. As I mentioned, my name is Stuart Creek. I'm a marketing manager here at Simplilearn, and with us today is Vinita Rastogi, who is a senior manager of data science at PayPal. And this interview prep masterclass is how to crack a data science interview at a top Silicon Valley company. For those of you in data science who are looking to get into the top tier of technology companies, it'll be a great session for you. If you're on the WebEx session, please enter your questions for Vinita in the Q&A panel. We'll also keep an eye on the chat, but most of the questions we'll take from the Q&A panel. And if you're on our streaming service, please put your questions into the comments. Somebody should be able to pass those on to us. We'll also ask a couple of questions. Just the first one today is very simple. 2 parts. One is how much experience you have in the workplace, not necessarily in data science, but in the workplace. And number 2, how are you feeling today? We asked that second question because of the effects of our last couple of years of the pandemic. Give you about another 10 seconds to answer. And I have the advantage of watching the answers come in as live, so I always find that it's very interesting. Here is the result of this poll question. And you can see that we have a very even distribution of experience in the audience at all different levels. And fortunately, nearly everybody is doing well or doing okay. We're glad to hear that as well.
Absolutely.
With that, just a little bit about you, and you can talk more about yourself. I'm sure introduce yourself better than I can. As I mentioned, you're the senior data science manager at PayPal. Can you talk a little bit more about your background before we get started?
Absolutely. So I have 9 years of experience in a field of data science. I started my career as a data analyst, in Bangalore with a company called Graydon Corporation. And from there, I moved to Genpact. And after that, I took a career break. I think this is some of the things that you would like to hear more about. And then I shifted to UK and I started working as a senior data scientist. All the way through that, I actually keep on upskilling myself for that. And, during the pandemic, it was tough, I think, on everyone. We thought about our family and we moved back to India. And I started working with PayPal, I think recently, 2 months back. With PayPal, I'm working in a GCSC group, which is Global Credit Seller and Collections. And I lead a team over there who looks into the consumer and merchant payments, draw the insight, draw the analysis, and we share these insights with the different teams called strategy or operations who can actually use these insights to build or maybe change the strategy as per the business. So our role is quite crucial.
Okay. Um, it's interesting, just as a leadoff question, how have you seen Fintech change in the last several years? When PayPal started a number of years ago,
Yep.
I don't think the word Fintech was nearly as widely used as it is now, but now with the advent of microbanks and microcredit and that type of thing, how has that affected that market, and how has data science especially played into that?
I think data science is kind of a buzzword now. We were doing, mostly the similar things back then as well. PayPal was established in around 1998, somewhere in November, December, right? They started, one of the company, I think that PayPal was the first company where, who comes with a digital payments option. And if you see the trajectory, right, in the last couple of years, it has emerged like a leader, right? Not just the PayPal, but you have seen there are many companies who have opened, and maybe it's GPay or Paytm or the other companies, right, who have actually opened and come into the fintech environment. And this COVID times, or you can say the pandemic times, have grown the uh, uh, you say the growth. You can see the growth actually during this time, especially. And if we talk about the data science, we used to do the analysis back then as well. We call it as, analysis and research and, the statistical analysis. But now we call it, data science. The data science is nothing but it's a combination of your programming skill. It's a combination of your statistical skills. You do your research, you do your analysis, you draw the insights. Initially, earlier we used to draw the graphs on Excel. Now we do it on the Power BI or Tableau, right? So I think we used to do the similar things back then as well, but now we have much more in terms of technology. Why? Why? Because the data has increased immensely in the last couple of years, right? We have so huge data that now the data can't fit in any hard drive or in any system, right? And that's why we have the clouds. Now to manage that data and to analyze that data, you need new tools and technologies. And that's why we started using some of the tools, some of the languages, right? Python, R. We use SQL, day in, day out to analyze the data. We use the dashboards. We use the data visualization tools, in our company, Tableau, Click, MicroStrategy, to analyze or to visualize the data, right? So I don't say that, it has changed drastically, but I think the methods has changed. The core concepts have remained the same. We have changed the terminologies, but we are still doing similar things which we were doing back then as well.
Okay. And so the explosion of data, I assume that means that there's been a huge growth in demand for people to manage the data, data analysts, data scientists, data engineers. And so where does PayPal or its peers in Silicon Valley, where do you go to find talent you need in data science?
Sorry, can you come again with that?
Sure. Where are the places that you look for new hires to bring on board in data science? Where do you recruit from?
So one of the medium is our job boards, right? So our HR work tremendously, they work very hard to filter the resume. So please, if you are interested in any of the opportunity in PayPal, please do see the profiles and the roles in the PayPal website and apply, through that. Because I did the same, really, trust me on that. The second thing where actually I go to see, people for my team is either I get the references from HR or I look into the LinkedIn. I don't go to Naukri. I don't go to any website, to be honest.
Okay. All right. And when somebody comes to a job board or is going through some type of website, is it really a matter of that first screening happens by machine? Do you have like AI tools that look at resumes and CVs and filter out, the candidates that move on to talk to people?
You can say it's there. I won't say, it's not there, but it's again depends on HR as well. So, sometimes for some positions when you have a lot of applications, right, you do have to use machine for that. But for for some roles, we actually do read the resumes. So I usually get like 20 to 30 resumes, if at all I have to, hire somebody. So I do go through the resumes as well.
And what are some of the things that stand out when you look at those resumes? What are some of the things that catch your attention and either make somebody look like a good candidate or things that you see as red flags?
For me, the most important thing is, the kind of experience. So I'm talking here about, people who have experience. So we'll talk about the freshers later. So I usually hire the experienced candidates, to be honest. So I usually look for the experience, the kind of experience, the kind of projects that they have done. So I actually read through the resume and actually, read through the project that they have done. And I try to understand, what is the business problem that they are trying to solve during, with these projects. Yes. So I think that is really important for me because end of the day, it's not about your machine learning techniques. It's not about the kind of model that you have built because that can be done, by anyone who have, taken training from somewhere. But the problem solving skills is really important for me. The business domain knowledge is important for me. So I look for those things. And of course, the technical skills, how good the person, how good they sound, technically.
Okay. And on the other side, as I mentioned, are there things that stand out in a resume to you that say this is probably not a good candidate?
People actually talk a lot about, I would say sometimes they fake about the projects. They think that, we don't know, but we kind of know the kind of things that they write, right? Because what they are doing is it's something that, we have seen it from last so many years, right? So the kind of projects they put on the resume, the kind of language they put on the resume, it clearly makes out that, that it's not real. It's not something that they have done.
Okay. So you can always tell when somebody is padding their resume or
at least 85% of the time. Yes, absolutely.
And you when and want to talk about the freshers now we can, but if you prefer to talk about the process, we've started the process of somebody's resume has come in, you've reviewed it, you've made a short list of the people that you want to talk to. Who will they talk to? Will they start with you, or are there other people that they begin with, and then they get an HR screening first and then move to you? Or what's the progress of that progression?
Yeah, so it completely depends on the kind of role we are hiring for. So if at all we are hiring for the data scientist or data engineering role, right? So the first step is the online test, right? The HR will contact the person and give the online test. So the person has to give the online test. It will be consist of programming, the statistical knowledge and problem solving, right? So those are the three competencies we look for. And once the screening is done, then there are a couple of people that who takes the interview. So there are two phases of the interviews, basically. So one is with the manager. So it can be with me or with one of my colleagues. And the other one is the technical. Again, it could be with me or with my colleague. It's completely depend on the availability, right? So there are two interviews with the manager. So in the first interview, what we look for is the we just want to understand, the person. So we would like to know them, on a personal level, what kind of work they have done, how they have approached the problem, why they have done, if they have done something, why they have done it, right? So we go through the resume, pick up a project, we talk about it, right? So we try to understand, what kind of problem they are solving, why they are solving, who is their target audience, what is the success metric for the project, those kind of things. So which is, I would say, semi-technical, but not completely technical. Once the person clear this interview, the next step is with with the technical manager. So the technical interview is more about, your programming skill, your statistical skills. And obviously with the questions like guess estimates or maybe given a scenario and they have to approach. So here also we would like to see how the person is trying to approach the problem. I think that is the key thing. I think most people miss this because they focus too much on their programming skills that they forget about how to actually approach a business problem, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time that we have observed, I mean, I'll tell you the personal experience here, that when we actually give them the problem, they start with the data. They completely, they just start with the data, with the, some kind of analysis, okay, some kind of correlations, and then getting into the feature engineering, creating new variables, this and that, and then finally, with the model. But nobody actually come back and ask, what are the problem that we are trying to solve here? Who is going to be our target audience? Why you think it's a business problem, right? And what would be your success matrix? I think those are the questions that they should be asking rather than just jumping on the data. So yeah, there are a few things that I think are important from our perspective. And yeah, so that's the second step. Yeah, that's the third step, I would say. The last step is actually the which actually distinguish the top tier companies with the small or medium companies, is the behavioral and cultural fit. And guys, when I'm saying this, trust me on it, that we actually look for a candidate who has a cultural fit for the company. It is as important as having a technical skill, right? We would like to know you, how you are as a person, how you actually try to solve problem for your team, how you behave or you interact with your teammates, uh, how you approach different people. So these are some of the things that we actually look for.
Okay. So after the HR screening and the initial online test, the managerial interview, get a general feel for the person, the technical interview to dig deep into their skills, and then assessing that cultural fit to see how they'll fit on the team. Great.
Yeah.
So what are there differences in the process for freshers who don't have the background of experience to bring?
So the process is still remain the same, right? The process is completely same. That's the actually beauty of a top tier company, right? Because they are very, very organized. So if we are hiring for a role of a data scientist, if it's for a fresher, right, with 0 to 2 years of experience, say, the process will still remain the same. There will be a coding test, there will be a managerial round, there will be a technical round as well. Of course, you won't be having any, experience, or your working projects that you have done for a, say, for a company, but you do have a portfolio, right? Because when you practice data science, you do practice some problems, right? You go to Kaggle, you try to solve some, you maybe participate in some competitions, how you approach that problem, those kind of things. So we do look for portfolio if you have any, and what are the kind of probably problems that you have solved or you have shown on your resume. So we do look for that.
And when you're a fresher building a portfolio, do you put more emphasis on classroom projects that people have done where they can demonstrate, yes, I did this in a course, but this is the result of the project I can show you? Or do you put equal or more emphasis on things like open source competitions or projects that they've engaged in?
No,
hackathons and things.
Equal. It's equal. So it's not like if they have done classroom projects, they get less marks, and if they have done some open source project, they get more marks. No, nothing like that. The criteria is based on your understanding. What do you understand when you were trying to solve that problem? What do you understand? What's the learning for you out of that project? What did you learn from it, right? What kind of analysis, what kind of exploratory analysis that you have done? What are the feature engineering, if any? What was the relationship? What kind of models that you have built? And why did you choose probably one model over the other one, and why. The questions are, more or less the same for both the cases. We do give equal marks for, both the things. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is
Yeah.
most of the interviewing still in this environment? Is most of the interviewing being done over you know online tools like Zoom and Skype and that type of thing?
Yes, absolutely. It's completely virtual as of now. Yeah.
Okay. Does that give you the opportunity then for somebody who's doing the interview to share their screen from their system and show you some of their work? That part of the interview process.
We usually don't ask for it, but if they have something to show and if they request, I mean, we are open for it.
Okay. So what are some of the questions that you're going to ask in the technical, well, you mentioned, but I'm not sure if I understood correctly, if your interviews are more on the technical assessment side or more on the managerial side?
It's both. It's both. As I said, it's completely depend on the availability, right?
Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the things that in that managerial interview, what are some of the questions that people can expect to be asked, should be ready to deal with?
So when we, so there are, two levels of questions. So when we ask, the freshers, we ask more about the hypothesis testing. We mostly ask about the performance matrix, about, the model for the models they have used, right? What kind of performance matrix they have used and why, which one they feel is better one and why, those kind of questions. What is the p-value? Why we use p-value? What is the importance of it?
Okay.
Some of those questions, these are for the freshers. For the experienced one, we go a little bit deeper. How have you done the sampling? What is the problem statement? Uh, what was your approach initially? How you did the data gathering? If you have so many variables, how do you actually shrink it to what was your selection criteria? Those kind of things, because they have more experience into the industry, right? So obviously they have worked on the real data sets.
And that brings up an interesting question as well of how does a person get familiarity with the domain? Say somebody hasn't worked in the financial or fintech industry, but what can they do to show that they're interested, informed, and ready to work in that sector when they talk to you?
Stuart, it might come as a surprise to you, but I was not from the finance background when I started working with Graydon UK. So I worked with Genpact. I was working with the aviation industry, and the data was, completely different, right? So for me, and even, I mean, the kind of interview that I gave over there and the kind of interview that I take here, it not necessarily depends on, the company or the industry that you have worked for, or if you do have the domain knowledge. If you have a business domain knowledge, it's good. It's like icing on the cake, right? But even if you don't have, it's not compulsory.
That's very interesting. That actually, I think a lot of people in the audience might find that reassuring that they can talk to somebody in a particular company and not feel like they're at a huge disadvantage if they've never worked in that industry before.
No, please don't like that. Please do apply for the roles you think it's fit for you. If you don't hear back, that's completely fine, right? But what if you get a response?
So we use the word data scientist a lot, but data scientist sometimes gives the image of somebody who's very experienced and thinking at a very high level and maybe even almost a theoretical level about some of these problems. What is the kind of career path for somebody who's coming into this field as a fresher? What jobs would they realistically apply for?
So I would suggest, so there are completely depends on the job descriptions, because if you let's be honest, if you see the job descriptions in today's environment, they want to have everything under data science, tag, right? Be it data engineering profile or be it, data analyst, they want to have everything. Person should know everything. But that's
Mhm.
not true, right? That's not true. If you are a fresher and if you would like to get into the data science profile, I would suggest to start, looking into the data analyst job, because I think the first step towards the data science or the hyped data science word is more about, how you actually start looking at the data, right? How you understand it. So it's more about, analyzing it, how you actually try to find the insights and then convert into some recommendations, right? So that is more important. So if you are a fresher and if you would like to get into the data science domain, you can try for the data analyst profile, because for the data scientist job, there are very less vacancies who actually look for the fresher, right?
Okay.
So yeah, start looking for the data analyst or yeah, that's all I can think of. Or maybe, in some companies, even under the tag business analyst, they actually give the same description about the profile. So yeah.
Do you find this is a question about the working environment? Do you find that people who are working on at the analyst level, do they have a lot of interaction with people at higher levels of the company to get visibility, or is that filtered through their chain of command?
No. So, I mean, that's the beauty here. So, there are, different level of data scientists who reports to me. And then I report to the director, and then he reports to the VP, and then he reports to the, SVP, right? But
Mhm.
if I want, I can actually get in touch with the VP directly without, having my manager into the conversation. And same way, my manager, they interact with my reportees directly. So it's not like, so it's a completely open culture where you can actually go and speak to anybody of any level. Of course, I mean, it's not like you're going to go to the EVP and, start chatting with them. But then there
Right.
is no level. If you want to work, if you want to ask something, if you need some help with someone, if you need some kind of request from someone, you can approach anybody.
I mean, that's I think a good thing about the data science field, in that you're dealing with business information and people need to get answers. So they don't necessarily want to wait for this process to filter through the official
Exactly.
chain. Um, and that means that people who are just starting out get a chance to talk to people above them, maybe a couple of levels,
Yes.
and you get a chance to be seen and to move up the organization, get opportunities to
It's
ask
more,
stuff.
it's
So
about the visibility as well, right? So the freshers or the people who just join maybe with like 2 or 3 years experience, right? They actually get chance to speak with the leaders, right? But directly, if they're working on some important project, right, the leader will actually, send you a message on Teams, what's the status, how it's going, can we have a quick call? So you don't have to wait for me or my manager or his manager, right, to get that information. They can actually connect with each other regardless of their designation or their roles, right?
that's always a great thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, in getting back to the interviewing process, so um, how deep will the technical interview go in terms of do you what's the kind of technique that you use? Did you take a problem and say, let's solve this together and show me how you do it, or do you ask a series of questions?
I usually don't do, things where actually I ask them to code in front of me. I don't do that because that thing is already over in their first round. So
Mhm.
I know they're good at coding. That's why they cleared that round, right? So I don't need to see that. But what I do is I always throw a problem to them that, and ask them, how would you solve it? And I
Okay.
actually want to see the approach. For me, it doesn't matter, what is the answer they're coming out with. I actually like to know, how they're approaching the problem. What is their technique? What is their methodology? what are the certain steps. And actually that, that complete method, it tells me that how they have, what kind of experience they have.
Um, do you, when you're walking through that, how far into the problem solution do you go? I mean, how much time will you spend on a interview segment like that?
I don't segment, right? So it's completely depend on the candidate. So if they actually go deeper and deeper into the modeling, into the model, into the matrix, we'll go to that. We just want to see how they are doing it, how they're approaching it. It's completely on them how they want to take the direction of the interview. So we always think that it's not the interviewer, it's you guys who can take the interview in a certain direction, in your direction, so wherever your strength lies in. But yeah.
I was going to say that then brings up the question: what are the kinds of directions that people can take you in an interview that get you interested in them as a potential employee? And what are some of the directions that would take you in a different direction and say they're not focused on the answer here?
See, it's very easy to answer this question because most of the times they actually go in the direction and they go deeper and deeper into that at some point of time they actually lost where they were coming from. So they kind of lost why we did this, because you ask questions, right? I asked why you are doing this, and this is what this you could have approached it in this way, and they're like yeah, and they're kind of lost over there. So
Okay.
right, you can relate it. Yeah, I mean, now that's the end. And how do you know if they are successful? Because those who knows what are their strengths, they actually take the interview where their strength lies. So if they're good at statistical skills, right, they will take the interview probably into the the technicalities, the mathematical aspects of the model, and they excel in it because they know in and out of it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can differentiate. It's very easy. You do it once and you'll find it out.
There, you just reminded me of something from a long time ago. There is a stage play that was popular many years ago about the cartoon, the comic strip Peanuts with Charlie Brown and Snoopy and that type of thing. And in this stage play, it's a musical. There's a song number where all of the children are being asked to write a book report about the book Peter Rabbit. And the one thing that stood out for me in this conversation is one of the children has never read the book Peter Rabbit, but he's read the book Robin Hood. That's his favorite book. So he writes his book report. Peter Rabbit kind of reminds me of Robin Hood, and then he goes completely into that direction. So when you talk about people taking it in direction, I understand what you mean when people will take it in a direction that they're most comfortable with, or the thing that they feel that they're strongest with.
Exactly.
So do you recommend that people do a self-assessment of that and say, I'm very strong in this area. Here are other areas where I should be stronger in case I need to answer that or work on that part of.
I think that we should all do it, at some point of time, because after every interview, after every rejection, I think we all do that at some point of time, right? And this self-assessment is something that we should do it on a regular basis, because it helps you to know that, what are your improvement areas and where you need to work more on, right? So if you are good in the programming, if you are good in statistical skills, probably you might need to work more on the storytelling skills. Maybe you might need to work more on the, how to approach the problem. Maybe you might need to work more on, see how data visualization, what are the kind of analysis that you can, show to come up with a insight, maybe. So I think we all should, yeah, I think they should do it. Yeah.
Okay. When somebody is very strong in one area, not as strong in other areas, do you sometimes hire them for that strength and say that you can bring them along in the other areas, or are you looking for somebody who's going to be, if they're strong in one area, they're at least pretty strong in the other areas as well?
It completely depends on the area.
Okay.
So it's not like, so if at all, they are good at programming, they are good at statistical skills, but, they lack some bit of, say, problem solving or the storytelling skills, it's kind of okay because they learn with time. The more they interact with the stakeholders, the more they present their, presentations in the leadership meeting, they will learn it eventually, right? Maybe they might not have got this opportunity earlier. If you talk about the freshers, they don't get this opportunity. A part of, a part of presenting something maybe in the class, I don't think they get, this opportunity, right? So that is something I think they can learn on the job. But if they don't know about, they lack statistical skills, they don't know, what is the basics of the, the stats, I think then there's a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So there are certain core skills that take certain priority. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense. So if you're giving advice to the people in the audience about how to prepare for this interview process, what can they do beforehand, before they come in to the Zoom meeting with you? What should they have ready at their fingertips, or what kinds of preparation can they do?
Okay, so I'm not going to tell you, what kind of programming that you should ace in, or what kind of question I will be asking you in this from the stats. I'm giving you a general idea about how you should approach not just this, but any interview, right? Please do read about the role that you are applying for, right? Do read about, try to understand the position that you are applying for, and try to customize your resume based on your, your research. If you would like your resume to be filtered, I think that's a, that's a main thing, because there are times when you actually send the same resume to 100 different positions and you think that why you are not getting the response. Clearly, you have not seen the job description, you have not read about the role, what are they asking for, and that's the reason your resume is not getting filtered, right? So do read about the role. Second thing is, please do read about the company as well, to the company you are applying for. Shouldn't be like, I'm telling you, what PayPal is doing. I really hope that at least something about PayPal. I know you don't know, the insights of what exactly we do work-wise, but I do understand if you Google, just about PayPal, you'll get tons of information which will actually tell you, what is the business model and how the PayPal works, right? So at least that level of information I expect from the candidate. The other thing is, when you actually, come for the interview, please do practice some interview responses, especially your introduction, because that's a very crucial one that gives the first impression on the interviewer. Normally you come and you just say your name and you where you have get your education from, or probably what kind of degree you have. I think you need to elaborate more about, if you have experience, more about experience and achievements, and be thorough with it. Be confident about about your introduction. Do not fumble, do not stammer over there, because if you are not confident about your stuff, how can you expect the interviewer to be confident, get that confidence for you, right? So that is very important. So they need to work on some of these things.
And that brings up just a comment that a lot of people who work in technology may be a little bit introverted and not as comfortable talking with new people or strangers and that type of thing. And that's something that people need to practice that skill, because you need to be,
I 110% agree with you, because I can relate it to myself. I took a career break recently when I come back to India and had my second son recently last year. So I took a career break of around 1.5 years. So when I started applying for the companies, I quickly I started getting the calls as well. So when I'm giving my first few interviews, right, I used to get nervous, how I'll get the interview. Because when you think about interview, right, when you are sitting alone, when you think about interview, it's completely normal. But when you actually, log into that, WebEx or the meeting, and when you see the interviewer, you get stressed out. You actually get panic. So the other thing is be calm, don't lose your composure. Nothing is going to happen. We are here to help you out. We actually want to hire you, right? And we would like to know, how you are as a person, as a candidate. So there is nothing to worry about because nobody knows, everything. And people, I have seen people get stressed out if they don't know the answer of first or second question. From there, their interview goes like downwards because
Right.
they just get stressed out, they got panic, and and they think, okay, now nothing is going to happen. Don't think about it. Be confident. Even if you don't know something, leave it like that. Just tell them you don't know because even I don't know everything. There's no one who knows everything. We still are learning. Data science is a evolving field, right? Every there is something or the other to learn. I read books. I keep upskill myself, just so that whenever I talk to a new data science candidate, or maybe a data science audience, or maybe in the leadership, I have something to talk about, something new to talk about.
Mhm.
So focus on those things. Keep upskilling yourself. Give time to learn. And it's not a process that you can do it overnight or in a day or two. It takes time. It's a long process. Take baby steps. Learn something new every day. Spend 1 or 2 hours. Read something. Try to gain knowledge, and you will reach there. And it's more about the confidence. Once you know that you know stuff, you will get that confidence, and then you will ace all the interviews. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that you said that is a really, really, really valuable thing for people to remember is that in an interview, the people interviewing you want to hire you because they need to fill a position. So
Exactly.
they're hoping that you will be the right person, and that'll make their job easier because they now have somebody they can say, this is a great person, let's hire them. So you should always go in with the idea that um, this is not why should I hire you? We don't really need anybody. You're trying to get us to force you into a position that doesn't exist. This is a situation where, please, we have a job opening. We need somebody who's good to fill this job. Explain to us why you're good at this kind of work and why you'll fit in here. So that's a great change in the thinking of a job applicant from I have to sell myself
Yeah,
because they're not really interested to I have to show them why I help them fill this requirement. So
absolutely. Yep.
that's very valuable. Um, so we're at a point where I think it would be good if we started taking questions because we've got dozens of them coming in uh, from different sources. So let me pull up some of these that have come in so far. Uh, so you had said, Agash has a question about, what are the qualities in programming languages you expect from freshers? Are there any things that you see as basic minimums that freshers have to have studied or bring with them to the interview, to
Uh,
the application?
the first and foremost programming language, that we need to have is SQL. Don't be surprised, but SQL is something that has been used, I think, 10 years back, and we are still using it. And sometimes we use it, in place of Python as well. So, that is the main one. Do not forget about, SQL. Second, if you have, anything between Python or R, that is also fine.
I, I I'm going to shock you. I was at studying computer science at University of California, Berkeley, in the late 1970s, and that was when The researchers there were developing SQL as a database management technique. So it goes way back.
Absolutely, and we are still using it, day in and day
Yeah.
out. Python is you still. We still use Python. It's not that we don't use Python or R, right? But if you ask me what language I prefer or what I use, maximum number of times, I would say SQL.
Mhm. Yeah, Amruta asked if you could talk a little bit more about how your career has progressed after coming back from the break. Has that made an impact on, did the break have an impact on you, or is it everything basically as it was before?
To me, I think I was lucky enough that it doesn't impact. My break doesn't impact me because I actually picked up where I left in the UK. So I got similar designations or everything in that for that matter, right? I took a break. It was completely my decision to take it because as I mentioned that I was coming back from UK and then I was having a baby as well. So I took the break and I took my own sweet time to prepare for the interviews, right? I took around 6 to 8 months to upskill myself to learn, what is there in the market currently and, how should I approach some of the problems that we are, dealing with. I start applying to all the companies, to be honest, where I think I'm a good fit, where I think the role matches my interest and, the designation matches with my previous one as well. And to my amaze, trust me on this, that, I got, I think I got called from almost 80% of the companies. And
Wow.
yeah, I gave the interviews. Initially, I screwed it up. It happens. It happens with everyone. I screwed it up because I was nervous. I was, I get stressed out, whenever I see the interviewer. So I couldn't give my best shot. But with time, it took me like a month or so to gain that confidence. No, I can do it. What's there to lose, right? There's nothing to lose, I'm still here without job or with job. I'll still be there. If not this company, some other company, right? So there's nothing for me to lose. So I start gaining that confidence. I start refreshing my concepts. I start learning, the things, and then slowly when I was getting the call, I was giving the interviews. Probably I got a call from most of the companies, and then I chose PayPal. And out of all the companies, nowhere I actually have to compromise on the designation or remuneration. So I see this as a drastic change in the in the thought process in the companies, at least. Yeah.
Amita asked a question. If you're making a career shift into data science, um, does it make sense to try to specialize in some niche like NLP or applications in e-commerce or that type of thing, or is it better to have the general skills, kind of a well-rounded repertoire, and then specialize once you're in a position?
If you ask me, I would say that if you are actually making a move from a, if you are new to a data science field, having the general qualities or the general technical skills actually open most of the doors of the company rather than having the specialization in one skill. Because if you talk about NLP or the computer vision, they need experience, right? You need industry experience to get into that profile. At least most of the companies look for the experienced person. But if you are actually new in the field, it actually makes sense because then there are a lot of options for you to apply.
Now, Neat is a different kind of fresher in that he's completed a PhD in computer science in the machine learning domain, has a year of experience as a research associate at the university. So, in presenting that level of qualification experience, Are there any special things that you would advise? He's looking for work in the corporate sector.
I think there is nothing special that I can advise because you are already PhD in a such niche area, right? That right now it's kind of people are looking for. So if you are, if you are expert in, computer science domain already, computer science or computer vision, I'm not sure. But if you are expert in that area already, then I think you might have already covered some of the basic skills or the general skills that is required for the data science domain, right? So I don't think you need anything special. I think you should start applying. Probably they for the data scientist positions because you are a PhD. You have much more. If not, I mean, you have research experience already. You don't have the industry experience. You don't have the corporate experience, but you do have the research experience.
Okay. Presumably, you'd be asking the same kinds of questions in terms of, how have you applied your knowledge and what kind of projects have you done? And so
exactly. Yes, absolutely. Because in the PhD as well, they are trying to solve. I mean, there is a project that he would be working on, he or she would be working on, right? And they have applied their knowledge. They have done research. They have put, so much of hard work of like 3 to 4 years into that. So I don't see any issues with that. Even if it's one project, I think, you should go for it.
Okay. Stan could ask a question about IT experience other than in data science directly. So if somebody's got IT experience or coding experience, how much does that translate to data science, and are they viable candidates for you, or do you recommend that they need to add the particular statistical and other skills?
I mean, if you ask me, I would actually prefer a person with, programming plus statistical experience. The only reason would be because I don't have to, teach them how to interpret the results, right? And that's most of the time that we spend is on that. You can, analyze the data, but if you don't interpret it, if you can't interpret that, then, it's of no use, right? So even though you have a good IT experience, which is kind of a positive thing for you because you do not have to invest that time again, right, to learn that. All you need to invest your time in learning some of the statistical, knowledge, how to approach a problem, and maybe pick a data set from the open source or the Kaggle or somewhere and start looking at that. Try to find other people on the Kaggle, how they are solving this problem and try to understand what are the things they are doing differently, and you will get to know people from different domain or people from different insights.
Amit has the idea, the impression now that we're in a period of layoffs. There's a flood of applications for every single job that's out there, and he's interested in knowing how to stand out as a fresher. So the first part of the question is it really the case now where there's just way more applicants than there are jobs?
I mean, as far as PayPal is concerned, that's not the case. We are not laying off anybody in India. Instead, we are hiring a lot of people. We have a target for this year end to hire, a lot of people. So that's not the case. And even if, in other companies, there are layoffs and there are a lot of applications, you can't help it, right? I mean, there's nothing that you can do about it. All you can do it, as I mentioned before, customize your resume as per the requirement. What is the role that you are applying for? Try to understand that. And then, cater or customize your resume based on that. Do not send out the same resume for 10 different profiles or 10 different companies. Just try to customize it so that, you try to use the keywords because maybe the languages, means the same, but when the filtering is happening, maybe by a bot or something, AI bot,
Yep.
the resume might not filter. So try to use the keywords that will help. Another thing I can recommend you is if you are trying to find, do start networking on LinkedIn. Try to show your presence, right? Maybe post some articles, write some articles. It actually help you to gain knowledge, as well as, it will actually show your presence in your group, right? Try to, have your, maybe, try to network with the HRs or with the people where you actually want to apply in those companies, right? Try to interact, because then you can actually send out your resume to them, and they can, share it with the HR directly, right? So these are some of the things that can actually help you in getting a call.
That's you had mentioned early in the hour that you look at LinkedIn when you're looking at candidates. Are you looking at LinkedIn to find new candidates when you have an opening, or are you looking at the LinkedIn of a candidate whose resume is in front of you?
I actually, I mean, if the resume is in front of me, I don't actually go to the LinkedIn and look into it. But I do actually look at the LinkedIn when I do have a requirement in the team.
Okay. So you're actually going out and looking for potential hires through that channel. So
yes.
that's, and that, by the way, that means for the people in the audience that if you have a presence there, if, as Vinita said, as you've networked there and you have something of a network and a reputation there, that means that there are people who are going to contact you directly and bypass the AI bot that might look at your resume and filter it out. People who are going to look at you and as a human being and say, this is a person that's interesting, might want to talk to. So, Mona asked, do you make a distinction in the company between a data scientist and a machine learning engineer?
Okay. So when you talk about the data scientists, right, they are more into the actually solving the business problem, creating the business models, getting it productionalized, and then monitor it. So that is the life cycle of a data scientist. And the data science actually profile keeps changing based on the company, based on the role, right? It's not always about building the models. It's more about analyzing, doing the research, those kind of things. But when you talk about the machine learning engineer profile, it's more into uh, data integration, creating the data marts, uh, doing the backend kind of work, I would say.
Okay. Related to that, we have a couple of questions. One is Rajesh, who asks, is machine learning experience enough alone, or do you want to see people who've taken it further into deep learning techniques?
It's completely depends on the requirement for me. So if at all, it's just for the if the role is, I mean, for my team, we don't work on the deep learning, right? So we don't need anybody who actually, I mean, if they have the deep learning experience, it's good. Even if they don't have, that's also good, right? So it's, again, it's completely dependent on the role. So there are companies who actually work on the deep learnings. I mean, PayPal also work with deep learning, but yeah, it's, again, we don't have, if we have a requirement, we look into it. If we don't have, we don't look for that.
Okay. And Rajiv has another question about, are there different roles for data science workers who are doing research versus people who are doing practical applications that might get integrated into the PayPal platform? Or is it all one basic effort within the company?
There are differences. There are differences. So there are, I mean, because, with the top tier companies, when the company is so big, the roles are well defined, right? So there are people who are doing the jobs that you mentioned exactly, right? There are people who are just doing the model validation. There are people who are doing the data science job into the governance. There are people who are doing the data science job, say, in collections. So again, it's completely dependent on the role and the requirement.
Okay. I think we're coming up on the hour, so I want to ask one last question. I think it relates to a couple of other people who asked it. Monica says, I'm from a mechanical engineering field with 4 years of experience in production engineering. How would I migrate into a data analyst role? What are the things I need to study and what should I emphasize on my resume?
I think the couple of things that you should, start with is start learning SQL, right? Start with SQL, and you can start learning Python or R, whichever, you feel comfortable with on the side. But you can start with the SQL. Start, reading some books on these statistics. Just get the basic knowledge, probably some of the criterias like what is regression, what is the hypothesis testing, uh, say what is the p-value. These are the general things that, we look for in the pressures. We look for the very basic things. We don't go, in depth of the mathematical expressions that there are, right? So just the basic stuff that we look for. So, read that, and probably, if you have time, try to understand the different problems that the business is trying to solve with the help of data science, right? So this will help you in understanding. You can relate it with the data, with the company you are applying for.
And maybe, for example, knowing some of the statistical techniques that are used in Lean Six Sigma and production environment might be a specific help to a person like Monica in that job, because that might be a bridge. So we have so many more questions that we can't possibly get to all of them, and I apologize to everyone in the audience for not being able to do that. But I do need to move on to the conclusion for our webinar now. So I'm going to do that. We've gone through questions and answers. I'm just going to mention a program that we have for people who are freshers, because this is not for people who are very experienced in the industry, but we target this at people who have anywhere from 0 to 3 years of industry experience. But this is a program that we've developed at Simplilearn with a number of companies in India who have told us, we understand that you do very good training, produce excellent graduates of your programs. We can hire as many as you can produce within certain parameters. So we have a job guarantee program that I'll explain what that means in a second, but it's a comprehensive training program. It allows you to get experience with the kinds of problems and case studies, hands-on use of tools, including SQL, including R and Python. And it's based on online live classroom interaction, so it's not just self-study from videos. What curriculum covers is statistics essentials, business analytics with Excel, but also SQL training, Python. You have electives in R. You go into machine learning and an elective even into deep learning with Keras and TensorFlow, visualization with Tableau, and all of it culminates in a capstone project of the type of thing where if someone in an interview asks, what kind of projects have you done? You have the ability to say, I've gone through this industry-based problem. This is how I produced the solution. So it gives you a great point to show off in your interviews. And when I say job guarantee, this is for learners in India only, because our partners are looking for people who have the ability to work in their companies, and our companies are Indian. We provide 6 months of job search support after the end of the program. We provide resume help, provide interview preparation, as Vinita said, very important to practice your interviewing skills, and we give you access to a premium job board. So with that, you either receive a full-time job offer from one of our hiring partner companies within 6 months of completing the program, or you'll get your entire program fees back. So based on that thumbnail sketch, I just wanted to ask a question of the audience before we finish. Is this something that you might be interested in. And we're not asking for you to sign up today, but I am curious to know if you might be interested in finding out more and when you think this is something you might want to do. If you are. Give another 20 seconds or so. About 10 seconds. And I will share with you the poll result. So about half of the people in our audience today would be interested in finding out more. Another third might be. What I'm going to do is put into the chat right now the link to the program page and also our email address, askus@simplylearn.net, so that you can find out more about this program. Ask us questions about it directly. With that, I will move on to thank Vinita for being here. Here's her LinkedIn profile link, and I will put that into the, I have that available here. Not. All right, it's linkedin.com at Vinita, just Vinita-Rastogi. So thank you so much, Vinita, for being here with us and sharing with us your insights, your knowledge. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Stuart, and thanks for making me part of this event. Thank you so much.
Okay. We do have another webinar coming up next week, 1 week from today, and this one is find the link to it. This one is also in the data science area. But this is specifically about data engineering and big data. So this is going to be the experiences of a person who has a 30-year career in big data and data science, and they're going to share how to build a career in that specific specialty. So if you're interested in that, please join us next week. And I've just put the link into the chat window as well, or you can scan the QR code. And assuming you've had a chance to click your button on your mobile, we'll move on to how to keep in touch with Simplilearn. You can follow us on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, @Simplilearn, and just Simplilearn on LinkedIn. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars, and we would love to welcome you into the Simplilearn learning community. And with that, that concludes our webinar for today. So thank you all very much for being here.